Welcome to Speed Talk Live, which isn't really live, but a poorly produced podcast where we talk about NASCAR and all things racing. And occasionally we have a special guest or two, when we can get them to show up. Sit down, strap in, pull those belts tight. Speed Talk Live is on the air.
Pace car is in. Green flag, green flag, green flag.
Welcome everyone, another week here at Speed Talk Live coming out of Sonoma. I'm Greg Engel, I'm flying solo this week. Owen Johnson normally joins me on this program. He's goofing off in Peru. I guess he's doing okay. He sent me a couple pictures, seems to be having a good time, and I hadn't heard about any international incidents, so I'm assuming he's doing just fine. We hope to have him back here next week, or not. We haven't heard yet. But let's talk about Sonoma. Coming out of the wine country race, a place that I love. It's a beautiful track, easily one of the most beautiful on the circuit. And Kyle Larson took the lead with less than 9 laps to go, won the race a couple days coming out of getting the waiver approved through NASCAR, who took their own sweet time after he technically missed Charlotte, didn't run any laps there. I kind of characterize Larson winning the Sonoma race days after getting the waiver as sort of a middle finger to NASCAR and the rest of the field to say, no matter what you do, I'm going to continue winning races. So let's talk about that waiver. Larson said all week that he wasn't worried about whether he would get the waiver, whether he wouldn't get the waiver. Jeff Gordon, who's the vice president of Hendrick Motorsports, and trust me, for somebody as old as me that remembers Jeff Gordon, the kid coming up through the ranks, it's really weird, kind of weird and cool to see him coming as the Hendrick Motorsports vice president in an executive role. But how did Kyle Larson handle the pressure and the worry from that waiver? Jeff Gordon kind of gave us an inside look after Larson won Sonoma.
I mean, I would say, he's very calm and cool through a lot of things, maybe even too much sometimes, right? But it is just sort of his personality and his upbringing and the way that he handles things, and that really works well for you when you've had a bad weekend or something that hasn't gone well. It works against you when you want to savor the victory and enjoy it, because you're able to move past things, fairly quickly. So good and bad, but I definitely saw a little bit more in him than maybe he's letting on to of some of the concerns when Monday came around. I kept telling him not to worry, but I was worried too.
But that concern, that worry seemed to be among the driver and the executive team in Hendrick. It wasn't among the team, at least, according to Gordon.
I didn't see it affecting the majority of the team. I think it was on the minds of Cliff and Kyle and Rick and Jeff Andrews and myself and Chad and at that level, maybe on the PR media side of things. But as far as how that trickled down the team, I didn't see where they were really unwavered by it. I mean, they seem to, that's a funny word for, but no, they seem to be business as usual and prepping for the next race, the next 2 races, the way that they normally do. So, I think the best medicine in any of those situations is getting back to the racetrack. And so they, especially when they got here and, home track for Kyle and I think a track that they enjoy racing at and a lot of the competitors do. So I think that put a lot of that to rest.
So I liked Larson's response after he won the race when he was asked about all the waiver and waiting on it. And was he really worried?
Clearly, my mind never wavered. It was always kind of focused on executing and winning the regular season points. Whether that be on the owner's side or whatever, it didn't really, my mindset has not changed at all. So, I race to win every single race. So, I haven't really thought any differently since missing Charlotte.
So there you go. All the kid wants to do is win races. He went out, won Sonoma, and now he's definitely going to be in the playoffs. He's a playoff contender. So how he's going to go forward from that, we'll see. So wrapping up Sonoma, Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG, scored his second consecutive Xfinity win, winning at Sonoma, much to the chagrin of Austin Hill, who he passed on the last lap. SVG didn't care and went on to score his second consecutive win, like I said, a week after winning at Portland. Now, Aussie fans reached out to me this week and said that we just need to start calling him Gizzy because that's what they call him. So here in the States, that's what I'm going to get started. So you will forever hear me refer to Shane Van Gisbergen as Gizzy because that's what the Aussie fans do and the New Zealand fans do. So we'll try to get that started here in the States. All right. The other big news this week, of course, is about the charters. Multiple teams told the Associated Press that NASCAR gave them a charter offer a couple weeks ago. And according to the team owners, it was the worst offer NASCAR had given them. The France family, for a reminder, for those of you don't know, is a private company, and they won't budge on something that the owners want, which is to make the charters permanent. The most they'll go is 7 years, and that's kind of a rollback from previous offers because they want to, the teams want to make them permanent. France family says no, and they also want to purchase charters, which would make them team owners. Now, there's no precedent in NASCAR for them to be owning their own team. There is a precedent, obviously, in IndyCar. Roger Penske, he fields 3 cars in that series, in the IndyCar series, and also owns the series and owns Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, and Jim France here at the France family owns an IMSA team. So you know what? It's not out of the question. It's just going to be dependent upon, how much the teams want to give. Right at this point, they seem to feel defeated and seem to be headed towards a take it or leave it offer. The charters are going to expire at the end of this year. So, that could be the latest offer. Again, for 7 years, an option for another 7 years after that. There's also a cost cap in addition to the France family being allowed to buy charters. And also NASCAR would allow private equity firms to buy into charters. That's something that you kind of see in Formula One. I think that moving forward in order to modernize the sport, that's something that we should look at, definitely having the private equity firms in there and invest in these teams. I'm also not opposed to a cost cap. It works in Formula One. I think it could work here, and it might help to increase the parity. But as Denny Hamlin said, there's still a ton of work to do, not a little bit of work. So we'll see. I think the charters are coming to an end. It could be a messy one, but there could be some good things come out of it. Like I said, with the cost cap, I'm not a big fan of the France family buying into a team, but if Roger Penske can do it over an IndyCar, there's certainly no reason we can't see that here in NASCAR. Speaking of charters, Stewart-Haas Racing obviously shutting down at the end of the year. They have 4 charters, maybe 3, depending on where Front Row Motorsports bought the one they recently talked about acquiring. They didn't mention the price, nor did they mention where it came from. I suspect that it was one of the Stewart-Haas charters. But the bottom line, you're going to have 4 drivers out of a job next year. I talked to one of those drivers, Chase Briscoe, a driver I consider a friend. I knew him as he was coming up through the Xfinity series. We text back and forth, and he's just a great guy. I remember when him and his wife suffered the tragedy of losing their first child. His emotional win in the Xfinity series at Darlington the day he learned that news, and went on to win that race. So I also know his dad, Kevin. And when I heard about the Stewart-Haas Racing shutting down, the first thing I thought of obviously was Chase, because coming from Indiana, being a Tony Stewart fan growing up, here he was put into the Cup Series, before Tony Stewart in the same number car as Stewart had, and now he's out of a job. I talked to him about that and navigating the job market. I mean, it's not the same as you and I when we get laid off from a job. So I talked to him about that. And by the way, before we started recording this, we've been talking about that oversized gas station, Buc-ee's. And I learned him and his family love that place. And as a matter of fact, he actually has some furniture in his home from Buc-ee's. So we'll see how that works. Maybe someday I'll get up there and see it, but he's a big Buc-ee's fan. So anyway, here is my conversation. My part of the conversation is part of a media availability with Chase Briscoe. We won't talk about Buc-ee's. And I would have texted you, but I guess I didn't make the cut when you moved over to the new phone. But anyway,
I've got to send a ton of people still.
Anyway, on a serious kind of note, I don't want to drag it down, but when you got the news about Stuart Haas, I mean, it sucks. I know it was your dream to be there and stuff. I'm just kind of curious, and I'm looking for the business aspect of it. How does that work from a driver standpoint? Because I mean, like when I get laid off from jobs, and I've been laid off from plenty, you start shotgunning resumes out and you start working within your network. How does that work for a driver? I mean, are you waiting for phone calls? Does your agent take care of that stuff? How does it work in terms of starting to search for that next opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been no different than what you were saying, right? Just everybody I know kind of reaching out, telling them that I was available. I think that was the big thing is, up until SHR told us what was happening, 2 weeks ago now, I wasn't allowed to go talk to other people, because we didn't know if it was still going to be one charter or two, or, obviously ended up being all four, but I didn't know what the cards were going to be yet. So that was the first thing I actually asked when Tony set all the drivers down. He said, do you guys have any questions? I said, yeah, what does this mean for us as far as being able to talk to other teams? And he said, you guys are free to do whatever you want. So literally while I was sitting in the room, I started texting different people, just letting them know that, hey, I'm going to be available and I need to try to find something. So yeah, it's really no different. I think you just still are trying to put yourself out there and let people know that you're available and go talk to them and meet them and do whatever you have to do. And then, also try to obviously perform on the racetrack and show your worth. And, I definitely think that this is one of the more, unique and just interesting silly seasons. And the fact that there is so many drivers, we've never really been in a situation where there's this many drivers that are already in the Cup Series looking for a job. But then also you have the normal, Xfinity and truck guys trying to move up too. So, just trying to make sure that I'm not left out. I don't have anything to fall back on. I'm not like some of the other people where, they have a family business or something like that. And, with a 2.5-year-old and a wife and then twins on the way, I definitely can't afford to be left out and not have anything. So I've just been really trying to do everything I can to, put my best effort forward on the racetrack and obviously off the racetrack too, and just trying to, prove my worth to whoever may be out there looking.
How about your partners? Have you had any commitments from them, or did you have to go to them, or is any of them committed to you so far to help you find that next opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, there's not been anything, on paper signed, but, I think all of them have been pretty happy with, the relationship we've been able to build over the last couple of years. So, all of them were definitely willing to talk to whoever, it ended up going to wherever I end up. But yeah, I don't think there's definitely, I know for a fact there's not any commitment on paper. And even that was one thing I would say that Mahindra was pretty adamant about is that when I started this whole process, they were obviously one of the first people I called, and they made it pretty clear that they don't want to be the main topic of discussion. They want a team to hire me for me and not because of who I can bring. And even from their side, they felt like it was better for them when they do go back and try to sell it to, the high ups. If a team comes to me and says, hey, we want Chase for Chase and not because of Mahindra Tractors or highpoint.com or whatever, it was easier for them to internally sell it as well. So yeah, nothing on paper, but I am pretty confident that, I have a great enough relationship with, the Mahindra Tractors and highpoint.com and all these people that, whatever I end up finding and landing, I'm sure that there's going to be discussions there. But yeah, nothing really on paper by any means as far as that stuff goes.
Chase was also asked what he's taken away from his SHR experience that will help him with his next move.
I would say, one thing that kind of stands out more than anything is just, being able to. I've been at Stewart Haas through different times of, life for Stewart Haas, right? I was here in 18, 19, 20 when everything was going great. Seemed like we couldn't lose races if we even tried. And now I've been on the other side of it, 21, 22, 23, and now where, we're on the opposite side of the hill, so to speak, when it comes to, just the momentum and the performance side. So, I think just being able to, you know, wherever I go, I've been able to kind of go through adversity, and I've kind of seen both sides of why it's been successful when it's been successful. And, when it's on the other side of things, kind of understanding different areas that need to be pushed and how to push those areas. And, from a communication standpoint, literally everything from top to bottom. So I think that's one thing that no matter where I go, whether it's a team ready to win or a team that's kind of on the other end of it, I have experience at kind of all those structures of life, I guess, from a race team standpoint, where some people they've never been able to experience one or the other. So, that is the one thing I think that, as unfortunate as it's been to struggle the last couple of years, I do think it makes you kind of want it a little bit more, and just, it makes you hungry, especially whenever you've been able to feel what the other side feels like, and the Xfinity stuff, all the wins we were able to do. And even in 2022, the first year next gen, going to the round of eight, winning at Phoenix, I've got to know, and I know what that feels like. And, being able to kind of go through this downtime over the last, 2 years, I think has been honestly a good process for me, and just personally, just understanding that side. And, it's truthfully something I never really experienced in my career before, and was something that I felt like has probably made me stronger as a race car driver, just understanding how to, maximize days when your car is not good. And just all the things that kind of come along with that.
Look for my Forbes piece out of that interview this week on Forbes Sports Money. I'll also have links on our Twitter when that comes out, when I find time to do it, talking about a driver navigating the job market, because it's got to be kind of weird and trying times for him. But you know what? I'm excited for his next chapter. He's a talented driver. He's overcome, a lot. His son's now 1.5, and his wife is expecting twins. So great story, I think. And I'm really genuinely, like I said to him, I'm genuinely excited for his next chapter. So good on him. Sorry it's had to happen to him, but good on him for he'll have an opportunity next year to go to a different team, and he will land somewhere. And he also talked about the fact that there's crew members that are leaving. He went into the shop this week, and one of the crew members said it was their last week, but he thinks the road crews are going to stay together. And he is genuinely worried about whether Stewart Haas will have decent cars the rest of the season, or whether they're just going to kind of give up. I hope not. I hope they field some decent cars, and they're able to pull that off and get them at least in victory lane, maybe into the playoffs. So we'll see. But moving on, we got the playoff push coming up. The playoff push is that long, hot part of summer when teams try to make their way into playoff contention and get the regular season points and put themselves into contention. There are a lot of drivers who should be in playoff contention who are not. I'm thinking of Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch. None of them have a win. Martin Truex probably came the closest. On Sunday, he was leading with 9 laps to go, and Larson charged by him. It looked like Truex was going to have at least a second place finish. He took the white flag and ran out of fuel. And famously, in a highlight that will live on forever, he slowed coming out of turn 11 towards the start finish line, ran out of fuel, ended up 27th, last car on the lead lap. And he used the starter from his Toyota engine to bump himself across the finish line, so he at least finished on the lead lap. So, but he definitely needs a win. And again, reigning series champion Ryan Blaney, no win. 2-time champion Joey Logano, no wins. And then obviously Kyle Busch, a 2-time champion, no win. So those guys need a win. Logano especially kind of concerns me. He's currently 16th in the championship standings. That isn't good enough to make him playoff eligible on points because Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez have both won races. They're outside of that, so they're automatically in. So that bumps him down. He hasn't ranked this low through 16 races since 2011. So we'll see. I think he would be a good comeback story if not. Of course, Kyle Busch looked good last year with RCR. He looked to finally break through the frustration. He was solidly in the top 5, but on the final lap, him and Ross Chastain got together, much to Busch's anger, I'm sure. He didn't really express it, but he did get bumped out of the way, did manage to hold on for a 12th place finish. But he's ranked 15th in points, and like Logano, he would miss the championship. So we'll see moving forward as we go into what we're calling the playoff push, that long, hot summer. We're actually going to have 2 weeks off thanks to the Olympics in Paris, which I don't plan on watching, by the way. But now we head to Iowa this weekend. Iowa Speedway is going to host its first Cup race. It's an 8.75 mile track. We're going to have the race Sunday night. I'm not a big fan of Sunday night races, just because Sunday nights should be not go late into the night. But hey, that's where they have it. If you want to watch the race, it's now going to be on NBC, actually the USA Network this week. Found it a little strange. We had heard that I forget the guy's name now, was going to take over from Rick Allen, but Rick Allen is scheduled to be the play-by-play. So we'll see. NBC released a statement listing out who it was going to be. It was going to, and Rick Allen's on there. So we'll see. It's going to be on the USA Network. Let's hope they don't have as many commercials as Fox. So we can look forward to Iowa and make some kind of predictions on it. But the last NASCAR driver to win there, well, that would be Chase Briscoe. He won an Xfinity race there, the last time NASCAR raced there in 2019. And he was asked about looking forward to Iowa.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Every week, we typically have meet and greets and stuff with sponsors, and there's always the question of what's your favorite racetrack, and it's always, well, Iowa. And I'd always say we don't go there in the Cup Series, but it's Iowa Speedway, and now we finally get to go there in the Cup Series. So, yeah, I'm super excited. Truthfully, I'm not as excited as I probably would have been if they didn't repave it. Because it is going to be a totally different racetrack, I think, just going there now with the repave. But I think it still is going to have some of those same Iowa characteristics. But certainly, I was pretty bummed when I saw that they repaved it, just knowing, kind of my past history there, just the love that I had for that place and that racetrack. It just has always really suited kind of my driving style for whatever reason. So, yeah, super excited, though, to go. And, just looking forward to it.
Lee Diffie, that's who I was thinking of. I couldn't remember Lee Diffie's name. If I don't write it down before I come on and talk to you guys, I'll forget. So Lee Diffie was who was, I heard, and we heard, was going to be broadcasting in place of Rick Allen, but NBC has Rick Allen there. Iowa Speedway repaved, so it's kind of new to everybody. So I don't know if experience will count. Let's hope Chase does well. Let's just hope we have a good race. Let's hope there's no weather. Let's hope that there's no weather in Peru, and Owen continues to have a great time down there, and sends me more pictures. We'll check in with him as we can, and then we'll talk to you next week. Have a great week, everybody. I'll talk to you next week, and if Owen makes it back from Peru, he'll talk to you too. We'll see you later. Thanks for listening to Speed Talk Live. For questions or just to tell us how bad our production is or to leave other feedback, leave us a comment below. For all the latest NASCAR news, visit www.cupscene.com. Until next time, peace out and let's go racing.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.